Hey guys, how you doing? I've sent out a series of questions to people I know who work professionally within the music industry, asking them things like what inspired them, how they got into the industry, and more. Hopefully you'll find this insightful, useful, and yeah, I'll be doing more of these. Stay tuned. Hey Lou, how long have you been singing?
I've been singing for 30 odd years, considering I'm 38 now. So I've been singing since I was a little girl in church. So to say when I was first singing, I think my first ever kind of stage and church performance, I think I was actually 3 or 4. So yeah, that'd be 34 years.
Who or what was your greatest source of inspiration?
To be honest, I can't think of an exact person, but I know I did look up to a lot of the gospel singers back in the day. Not necessarily any particular famous names, but just some of the worship leaders in my church, because I didn't know any different, given that I started out so young. So I don't know if I have a greatest source of inspiration. I think it's just an amalgamation and a collection of all the singers that I was exposed to at a very young age in my church.
Tell me something about yourself that nobody knows.
I don't know. What do people not know? I mean, if people don't know it, they're probably not supposed to know it. I can't actually think of anything. I'll have to probably come back to that one.
At what age did you enter the industry and what steps did you take to get in?
Okay, so in terms of music industry, obviously I did choir stuff when I was younger, up until my teenage years. But in terms of being a session musician, I entered at the age of 16, 17. I entered via LCGC, London Community Gospel Choir. I was part of their session agency, actually. So it wasn't actually the choir. They had an agency called Choir Connection. And I was introduced to the industry via them because I did a few appearances with the choir and working on behalf of their session agency, doing weddings and private events and stuff like that. And lo and behold, once you do that, you get to know quite a few people, and slowly but surely your circle broadens, and then people see you singing here and there and they're like, oh, can you do this for me? And that's kind of how it all started.
Is singing your full-time job? If not, what else do you do to supplement your income?
Singing actually is my full-time at the moment. I do have aspirations to do my own business and stuff like that, but in terms of where my main source of money and stuff comes from, I'm fortunately able to do it by music. And again, my husband is, kind of carries the household, so which enables me to kind of do music while he kind of takes care of everything else.
Who are the most prolific artists that you've worked with?
Oh my God. Again, this is a hard one because with the session agency and LCG, I worked with quite a few different artists in different capacities. As part of a choir and stuff like that. But in terms of being a backing vocalist, I work for Gabrielle at the moment. I've also done Leona Lewis once, wasn't the greatest. Ella Goulding, I'm working with at the moment. Rebecca Ferguson. I'm trying to think who else. It's so crazy because you do so many different things. And I don't mean that in a boastful way, but in terms of different artists that I've worked with, I've done so many that you actually get to a point where you forget. So like sometimes I've done like the Brit Awards. I did that with Dave the other day, but again, it was part of a group. So I never kind of remember the ones where the artist doesn't actually know my name. I'm just one of many. So in terms of ones where artists know my name, those are the ones that I usually count. So your Ella Hendersons, your Gabrielles, Ella Goulding, and so on.
What's been your most memorable musical experience to date?
Surprisingly, this one for me was again with the session agency. I did a musical or opera, should I say, called Saira, with Roger Waters, and we went abroad, and it's one of those ones that, you know, not many people would have heard of, but in terms of, for me, I think I thoroughly, enjoyed it because it was something that you don't get to do every day. I mean, you can do concerts, you can do Glastonbury, you can do, you know, all of those big ones, but an opera, there's not many people that can say they've been a part of a opera. Do you know what I mean? So that was actually my most memorable one to date.
What's been your worst musical experience to date?
Here we go. So I was working for an artist not long after I had my last child, and through self-doubt and, you know, not feeling like I belonged, I was terrible. I was absolutely rubbish, and I completely let myself down. I sang off key, out of tune, and it was really terrible. And I've never forgotten it to this day. But I use it as a good lesson because I know it was something that I could have done easily. But because I allowed self-doubt and, you know, all the pressures of going back into the industry and should I really be here? Am I worthy of being here? Get to my head, I did a terrible job. Needless to say, I don't think I've been that bad ever again. But yeah, that was definitely my worst one.
When did your big break happen? And can you remember the emotions you felt when you got the call or the email?
I don't know if I've had a big break, if I'm honest, and I don't know what kind of constitutes as a big break. So I know, I'd say one of the best feelings I had is my very first tour, which wasn't like a major one, but I'd always done, you know, the odd session here and there. But then I was covering for someone on a gig, and the artist was going on tour the following, you know, in the next few months and whatnot. And getting the call to go on my very first tour was quite exciting. Because I'd never been on a tour bus before. I'd never been on tour before. And considering I had 4 children, I'd never kind of envisaged that I'd be able to go on tour. Obviously, I've been on a few since then, but at that time, it didn't seem like a possibility. So I wouldn't necessarily, I don't know if it would be called a big break, but I do remember feeling really excited at the prospect of being a mother of 4 and a wife and being able to do a tour.
What would you say is your greatest musical achievement to date?
Musical achievement? I don't know. Again, I'm hoping not, you know, I'm really sorry if these are rubbish answers. I can't think of what a musical achievement is. I mean, I know I take each and every job I do very seriously. And I get a real pleasure out of being called back to do a job. I know that might not sound like, you know, the greatest achievement. I haven't won any awards or anything like that, but just being called back from artists, sometimes when you've been a dep and stuff like that, to say, do you know what, actually you did a really good job. We really thoroughly enjoyed having you on the gig and being around you. I think that for me brings pleasure and is a good achievement in a sense of that I don't feel like, bar that worst experience, most people that I've worked for or done a job for, I've been called back again. So I think that is, without, you know, not in a boastful way, but a testament to, you know, doing a job well done, which for me is a good achievement.
As a vocalist, do you feel that you received the recognition that you deserve? If not, why not?
No, generally I do, actually. I don't have a desire to be a artist or whatnot. So I'm being a BV. I want to be a BV. I know there are many backing vocalists that want to be artists and want to do their own music. I don't actually have a desire to do that. So I feel like, you know, I'm where I'm supposed to be, and I do get, you know, the appreciation and credit when artists call me back, as I said, or when artists say, thank you so much, did a great job, it was fun to work with you and stuff like that. That's all the credit I need as far as I'm concerned. I'm doing a job. I don't need to be put on any stages or, you know, given medals for doing my job. So I think just being appreciated and congratulated on doing a job well done is enough for me.
Have you sung on any chart-topping albums or singles?
Yeah, I have. Again, because it's been part of groups and stuff like that, there's so many I can't remember. I've sung for a group called Spiritualiz. I've sung on, I can't even remember the guy's name, but an X Factor. No, Britain's Got Talent. The guy, the keyboardist guy. I'd have to get back to you with his name. I sang on his album, and that was cool. I've sang on Dappy from N-Dubs' album. Do you know what? I'd have to go through all my musical contract forms in the past because I've sang on a few things. But again, because I consider it work, I'm not very good at remembering. There's nothing recent that I've done that I can speak of to say, oh my gosh, yeah, I work for, the latest artist. But I have done a few in the past.
I'm wanted to start a campaign entitled Hear the Unseen to get the unseen people of music heard. For years, the artists and labels take the credit whilst the producers, musicians, mix engineers, BVs, etc. remain virtually unknown. What are your thoughts on this, and would you be willing to lend your support?
I would happily lend my support to you on your cause. Personally, I can't think of a time that I have felt, unheard. Because again, like I said, I consider it a job. And if I don't enjoy the job, I kind of move on. I know that's easier said than done for some. But generally, I kind of take that with me in any job that I do, whether it's working in a hotel, working in a shop, or music. I get it, and I get how, it can affect other people. So definitely it's something, I'd be willing to support. You don't have to go through something personally to appreciate that it exists and that there are others that are going through it. So yeah, definitely I would.
What are your future goals or plans?
Since COVID, to be fair, I don't plan too far ahead anymore because I realised that things can change in the blinking of an eye and I don't do disappointment. So in terms of the near future, I've got a few musical things that I'm doing for artists and stuff like that. I've got a tour coming up at the end of the year with Gabrielle, working with Ella Goulding this year as well. Again, just backing vocals. In terms of my own personal, they're not musical at all. I do have, aspirations to do some creative business things myself, but they're just in the infant stages. So, yeah, in terms of musically, it's just to continue working really while I can and enjoying every moment and all the opportunities that arise if I'm able to do them with, coinciding with my own business as well as, being a wife and a mother also. So if it can fit in, great. If it doesn't, then it's not for me.
And finally, what advice would you give to any budding singers?
I think this one's quite broad because I think it just depends on what area of singing you want to go into. Because like I said, I think there are many artists that want, or many BVs that want to be artists, or artists that enter the industry using the backing vocalist route. And then you can see them get quite frustrated when they can't make it and whatnot. So for me personally, I mean, it's easier said than done, but I would say if you want to be an artist, really work on your craft and do your best to get your music out before taking the route of being a backing vocalist. And I only say that because I've seen so many artists that have gone down the backing vocalist route and they haven't made it in their own right. And then there's others where I've seen that haven't gone down the backing vocalist route and, they're struggling. It's been hard, but lo and behold, eventually they do get it out. So I'm not saying that it's impossible to do it, in either of the routes, but, I've seen more success when you put in more effort into your own music than you are other people's. So that would be advice I would give. Also, continue to work on your craft in a sense of practicing. I think sometimes as singers, we can get quite lazy when it comes to our vocals, not necessarily warming up all the time, not investing in ourselves because our instrument is internal. We don't necessarily invest in ourselves properly. We don't get the singing lessons and the vocal therapies and all that different stuff, myself included. So I would say definitely honing on your craft, your health, vocal health, all of that stuff. And yeah, give it your best shot. That's what I would say.